Hey, what's going on, Spurs Nation? Welcome to the Rob Trejo Jr. YouTube channel where we talk Spurs basketball and operations. We're going to take a look at personnel, and in this episode, we're going to talk about roster construction and roster management. There's two parts to this, right? We got to look at the end of the 24-25 roster. We got to make big decisions coming this summer in terms of free agency, guaranteeing contracts, and then approaching the draft as well, right? So there's any trade scenarios out there, free agency. There's a lot that goes into planning and trying to create these scenarios that are gonna help you get to that goal, and that's hopefully to be a title contender in the very near future. Now, in this episode, I'm not going to dive into any kind of like Kevin Durant trade, or I'm not going to get into that because that's really not the Spurs motto, right? I mean, that's not really how they do business. They did bring in De'Aaron Fox. That was just right. The situation, the timing, their organization kind of pointing in that direction as well. The timing was just right to bring in De'Aaron. But I think normally the Spurs don't really operate that way. So let's just look at what we have in house and then we can take it from there. Okay. So first off, this is the roster finishing off the 24-25 season. We got De'Aaron Fox, Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and it used to be Wemby. Now it is Bismack Biyombo in that starting lineup, and that's what we rolled with this season. And then this was our second unit, the guys that pretty much got most of the minutes coming off the bench. Stephon Castle, obviously, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sochan, and Julian Champagnie. And now the guys that really didn't get any tick this year: Blake Wesley, a newly acquired player via trade. I'm going blank on the McLaughlin, right? McLaughlin. Malaki Branham didn't get any tick. Mamu Kelishvili didn't really get any tick. Now, Charles Bassie got some here and there, and, we'll talk about him in a little while. Just to let you guys know, though, this episode is presented by the Trejo Mortgage Team. That is myself and my wife. We are Texas loan originators. So if you're into looking for your first home or shopping for real estate, if you're an investor out there in Texas, go ahead and give us a shout. The links and everything you need is in the description below. All right, so let's start seeing what's going to happen this year in terms of figuring out the free agents, the non-guaranteed contracts. What should we do with those? And are there any trade scenarios that I feel that would be beneficial for this team? So as I start going through the process and start taking players off the board and all that, telling you what my thoughts are behind it, this is just like one version of an evaluation of how this roster can be put together going forward, right? So very exciting to kind of play around with this. But let's start right here with Jordan McLaughlin. Obviously, he'll be off the books next year. I don't think the Spurs are going to bring him back. Just initial thoughts here. Mamu Kelishvili, one of my personal favorites on this roster. Love the way he plays and all of that. But he's coming off the books as well, and we got to make a decision if we're going to bring him back. Bismack Biyombo, we just picked him up off the streets. Obviously, he's not going to be on the books long term. Chris Paul, now this is a big one also. He is on a 1-year deal. Now, I'm sure at the end of this season, he's going to evaluate, kind of what he wants to do in terms of his career, play, come off the bench, anything like that. But for now, he is coming off the books. So just by strictly removing your free agents before you go back to that negotiation table, this is who you have under contract for next season. Now, let's take a look at these non-guaranteed contracts like Charles Bassie. My evaluation is underwhelming. I think that's kind of how I would categorize Charles Bassie. And unfortunately, it's not his fault. He hasn't been durable enough to kind of showcase and get the proper run. This would have been a great opportunity for him now that Victor's out and we need bigs. We traded away Zach Collins, and it's his opportunity, but unfortunately health is getting in the way. And unfortunately, if I'm the Spurs, we're shifting into a new gear with De'Aaron Fox, no pun intended. He's got the speed, and we need to speed up this kind of rotation already. We've evaluated for a few years, and unfortunately, I see the Spurs not picking up his guaranteed contract. Now, or maybe that would just be an option if I was in that room. I'd be like, all right, guys, I think we need to move off Bassie. We need to allocate our time and efforts somewhere else. Now, Julian Champagnie. I'm really high on Julian. He's one of my favorite players on this roster. I have a thing for guys who can defend low to the ground, can guard 2 or 3 positions. He reminds me a lot of Derek White defensively. Offensively, he knows his role. He's a floor spacer. He's so good that he can start when one of your guys are out. Doesn't matter if it's your 2, your 3, or your 4 who is maybe out with injury or whatever. You can plug him in automatically. You get floor spacing around Wembanyama. Now his contract is non-guaranteed for 3 million. We signed him to a $3 million per year deal, non-guaranteed. Look, I hope that they went to that negotiation and Julian was like, let me show you. Let me show you. I'll sign this $3 million deal. Let me show you what I'm worth. And hopefully we can revisit. And I hope the Spurs revisit his contract and pay him a nice raise. I mean, he gets paid $3 million a year. I think easily his value, his worth defensively and shooting, he's worth at least $7 million. So I would like to see the Spurs kind of take a step back, renegotiate, and give him a raise because he's been everything we've needed him to be this season. Now his productivity and his stats have kind of fallen off a little bit, but that's because his role changes all the time. He's a starter. He's off the bench. He's playing 15 minutes a game. No, now it's only 9. Now and it's changing all the time, and he's been able to maintain consistency, I think, pretty well in terms of defensively and knowing his role and putting that shot up. I think Chris Paul has turned him into an elite shooter. He went from a really good shooter to now not being a player who turns down shots. Like, he just does not turn it down. He'll shoot that thing with a contested guy flying at him now. Full confidence, full motion. Eyes don't change, like, they lock on his target. Like, he does. He's a shooter, and that's a premium. We need him, and he can defend too. You know how OKC has like 8 guys that are all kind of like the same, that are like their 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guy on the bench. They're all like good players that can defend and shoot. Like, that's what he is. He's like one of those guys on OKC. So we need to keep him around, and we need to pay him to kind of make it right. I think we got to make it right and involve him a little bit more consistently next season. Harrison Barnes. Now, Harrison Barnes, let me start off by saying this. What a revelation he has been. He has been amazing. He has been the Western Conference Player of the Week. When was the last time we had a Spur do that? I mean, he has been the rock, the perfect picture of consistency, professionalism. I know he's been teaching a lot of these young guys, why those little things are important on how to be a pro in this league. And I think he's been doing amazing. I mean, he's been playing so good. Harrison Barnes has been playing so good that I was afraid that the Spurs were going to trade him at the trade deadline because he needs to be on a championship winning team. Can you imagine him on like the Cavs or him on the Celtics? You know what I mean? If we can acquire some type of trade, type of asset allocation from one of those teams, or just one of these top tier teams, dude. I mean, he's shooting lights out. He's a bucket from the corner. He's a catch and shoot. Like, he just makes all the right choices off the catch. He can finish on the. He's been doing so much great. If you've been watching Spurs basketball, you've just been blown away this season. You should have been blown away this season by Harrison Barnes and what he's brought to the table, which unfortunately makes him too valuable for us. I think, like, next year when we look at who's going to be on the roster and what we have available for next year, he's the odd man out. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the timeline. He's doing great things, but we need him to come off the bench. But but he should be coming off the bench for a title contender and getting 12 minutes in the playoffs. Like, that's how good he should be. So, I wish him nothing but the best, and I wouldn't mind having him around, but he's too good. Like, so Jeremy needs to play, dude. Some of these young guys need to play, and these draft picks that we get this year are going to need to play. All right. So unfortunately, I think the best kind of way to approach Harrison Barnes this offseason is by maximizing his value, which I think is at an all-time high right now. I think there's a lot of teams that would give up whatever kind of, to get him on their roster as like the 5th guy, 6th guy. Let's get a future first from Boston again. Let's get a future first from somewhere. You know what I mean? Like a lottery protected, right? Future first and a second. I mean, because he is that good, right? So unfortunately, in this episode and in my kind of first evaluation of how this can play out, this is how I see it going, this offseason. This is what, at least how I would approach it. So let's take a step back. Let's reshuffle the deck and let's see what we have in terms of depth and at the positions going into next season. Now, let's take a quick break to learn a little bit about the Trejo Mortgage Team. Thinking of buying a home, refinancing, investing? The Trejo Mortgage Team is here to make it happen fast and easy. Hi, I'm Robert Trejo Jr., and my team is dedicated to helping you find the best loan options, whether you're a first-time home buyer, investor, or just looking to tap into your home's equity. We have fast pre-approvals, competitive rates, and a 100% digital online application process. Ready to take the next step? Scan the QR code, apply now. Our contact information is in the description below. Let's make homeownership a reality together. All right, so let's look at the depth for next season at point guard. Let's just say that none of those pieces, that we had off the board return at this point. Just at this point, we have De'Aaron Fox, obviously, who's going to get the majority of the minutes, and then we have Blake Wesley, who's now starting to get some minutes here at the tail end of this season. I hope that we kind of take this time, these last 15 games or so, to evaluate some of these guys that we're going to talk about here, because the clock's ticking on their time, on their rookie contracts. But Blake Wesley, my first thoughts are, why not? Why not have De'Aaron Fox as your point guard and have Blake Wesley back him up? Now, with Chris Paul gone, we can slide Stephon Castle into that two guard spot, which I think it makes a lot of sense there as well. I think Steph and Fox are vibing, and I see that same thing with Fox and Vassell with their time together. I think you can really tell that De'Aaron Fox was trying to get Vassell going. There was times in the beginning of like the first quarter, right out the gate, where De'Aaron Fox is just turning down stuff because he wants to feed it right back to Vassell and make Vassell be aggressive, because there's been I think everyone who's watching this tail end of the season, like, there's a real change in the aggressiveness in Devin Vassell, right? And we'll talk about him in a second, but I think that has a lot to do with Fox trying to build him up to be that weapon that Fox is going to need him to be when he's running the show, and his number one option is Victor. He's going to need that next guy to be accountable, and I think he's really trying to pump up Devin right now. And I think Stephon Castle at the two gives you that defender, to that point of attack defender, and just guy who's going to get to the line and settle the game down from the get go. I mean, that's a 1, 2, 3 right there that I think has the potential, to be something to be messed with next season. And then we got Harrison Barnes out right away. You see Jeremy Sohan kind of fitting back into. Hopefully, I just hope he kind of. Jeremy Sohan this season has been an anomaly. I don't know what to think. I know he's one of our best defenders, and he takes the toughest job every night on the defensive end. And he's like your number one kind of like guy that has your back in all these Chris Paul fights that he gets in almost every game. You can tell that even Sohan, the guy who's like the bully out there, is kind of like, calm down, Chris. Damn, like we're not in the first quarter, like it's like the game, man, the game. But so he's the enforcer, and in every starting unit and in every team that's a contender, there has to be a balance of shot creation, shot making, rebounding, defense, and you need a bully to make sure that he keeps the other team intimidated and on their feet, and not just and he's taking the tough assignment defense. So I really need him though to make a leap. Like Sohan, the time is now to stop having these possessions where you're dribbling around and you're looking for a dribble handoff. Like we don't know what, like, we need to be more precise than that with the ball in our hands. And it's like, dude, like, yes, like, watch the Draymond tape, watch the great kind of the Jokic's. I mean, watch those guys. Watch how they set up everybody else. And he can be a guy that doesn't need to score, because you can tell like Sohan rarely looks to score. He's finishing the dunker spot. He's finishing on the break. He's finishing a drive and dish, something like that. But he's not looking to shoot. He's not looking to do that. And that's good. That's a good thing, because, like I said, balance. That needs to fall on Victor, Fox, and then everyone else needs to kind of pick up the slack. Now, Sohan is really good at that role already, but there's an offensive, I feel like, lack of confidence that trickles into other parts of his offensive game. And it's like, dude, just it should be ABC, 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 ABC all the time. Meanwhile, you're causing havoc on defense and rebounding the crap out of the ball. And so, we need that more consistently from Sohan next season if we're going to be a serious contender. He needs to not be getting punked by Jaren Jackson Jr. I know that's a easy for me to say, right? But I mean, like he needs to be able to go up against these power forwards of the Western Conference and hold his own, and actually create, like, put the other guy on their heels, right? You have Julian Champagnie at the backup two. I think that makes sense. He's more of a three, but you get to play big. I mean, Wesley's a big point guard. You get a big shooting guard. You get KJ off the bench at the three. You get to be big, and you get Malaki Branham at the end of your two guard depth. Which, I mean, Malaki and Blake. I'll get to Wemby here in a second, but Malaki and Blake and Jeremy Sochan are getting into their last year of their rookie deal. Obviously, I think we're all pretty confident that Sochan is going to get another contract right after this. But this season was basically a wash for Wesley and Malaki. I mean, it was a learning season for them. They didn't get any tick throughout the year, and I think that's interesting. It makes their evaluation a little bit more tougher. Um, but they've been great teammates on the bench and all that throughout the whole year. But the time would be this season to let them run, let them play, or figure out what you're going to do. Let them go or not, right? Because this year's draft is very guard heavy at the top. I think there's probably like 5, 6, 7 like really top notch guards in this draft. Now I don't want to go guard. I'm done with going guard in the draft. I think that was like an era of Spurs drafting, right? Just like the guard, just nothing but guards. I think we need to let Blake Wesley tell us that he's that good, because I get like a why not feeling, like he has all the tools and the potential to be a game changer off the bench and give you spot minutes, give you a real hard 12 minutes a game. You know what I mean? So Malaki, I think, is a bucket. He needs to step it up on defense too, so he can prove that he deserves to play, because he's going to hit his shots. He's going to be a little mini microwave on offense. He's going to be able to get you buckets. And he and Victor played very well together 2 years ago. I mean, they played very well together his rookie year, Wemby's rookie year. So there's something there, and it needs to get evaluated. And that's one of the big reasons why, in order for the minutes to trickle down, from this top to the bottom, so these guys can get these minutes, those other guys got to go. Unfortunately, they got to go, or they got to take lesser roles. But that's up to them. So obviously, you see a couple big holes here in our depth. We're missing a backup big. That's well known. We're missing a lot of length and athleticism, and we need to address the forward position, our small forward position and our power forward position. It can't be Sochan, getting dunked on all the time. We don't want Sochan to be Zach Collins, right? We need to get him help. We need to get guys like the Trey Murphys and of the world, right? These long, like, versatile defenders that can really guard your 4-5s, right? Your long 6'10 fours, right? So we're looking at the draft to do some of this stuff, right? So when we get to the draft, that's where I think that's the first spot that we look to fill some of these holes. So if we look at the draft right now, just kind of where things are going to be different once it's all said and done. And then you never know what's going to happen in the lottery. Every year there's a team that's like seventh, eighth, ninth in terms of like draft position, and they sneak up into the top four, all right, top five, something like that. So there's a lot of scenarios. You don't know. We'll never know. So we got to be prepared for a lot of different things. Now, the Spurs right now are sitting around the ninth or 10th spot. So let's just plug that in there. That's where I would like to address that. And our small forward also, we have the Atlanta pick. The Atlanta pick right now, Atlanta's doing us dirty right now. They're just climbing up the rankings, and their pick is like at 16, 15, something like that. So I mean, we'll see what we can turn these two guys into. But if we're looking at, the guys that are going to be available maybe in this range, let's take a look at this board right here. Obviously, Cooper Flag is going to be the number one. We're looking at small forwards and power forwards. Cooper Flag's not going to be there. We'll see if the Spurs are able to package something together to get in the top spot, or some miracle happens that the Spurs end up jumping, 10 spots and getting number one, just kind of like what happened to Atlanta last year. It's not totally crazy, right? But let's just say he's gone. Right now, Ace Bailey is on the big board, on Tankathon's big board, is third, right? Then you have Asan Newell, who's a 6'10 long finisher, but with a touch. He's like a dirty guy, like not he's not a dirty guy, but he's gonna do the dirty work type of a guy. And then you have this guy Noah Esengi right here from from, I don't know where he's from, but that guy is like a crafty European big, 6'9", not as big, right? But he's more of like your classic European ultra fundamental type of big man. And these two guys are your skilled player. Ace Bailey is obviously unbelievable. Asan Newell, I don't know if I'm saying that right. He is also high motor, high impact. I mean, this guy can really play. So in order to guard these long guys that there are in this league that we have trouble doing, my kind of idea of securing these two spots through the draft would actually be maybe trying to get two of these top four guys. Collins Murray Boyles, this guy down here from South Carolina, he's good too, but he's just a little too undersized for me. He's 6'7", but he doesn't look 6'7". But I mean, I guess he's 6'7". He looks more like a 6'9", 6'10" guy. But very very interesting player there out of South Carolina. So if we're able to secure two or three out of these two of these players in the draft to address these two holes, I'm down to do that. Or maybe if we can just package both of these two together to move up to get an Ace Bailey type of guy. I mean, maybe include our future first next year too, whatever. I mean, it would be amazing, and we need a guy like that. A long 6'9", 6'10" guy who can just really cause problems on the defensive end, help protect the rim, right? And then when we're talking about our third string, I mean, whatever, right? I like Harrison Ingram. I like Riley Minix. I really hope those two guys can actually earn their way into something. But as history tells us, man, like our second round picks, they don't really pan out. They don't really pan out. So if Riley Minix can turn into Matt Bonner and be like this four pick and pop, like automatic, like weapon, icy hot. Like as soon as he comes off the bench, cold as ice, he can go in there and then bang bang you 2 3s, off of just like a real simple pick and pop and just get you what you need, like Matt Bonner used to be able to do, just never mess up and all that. Then why not? Keep him on the roster. But that's all I'm going to say about them. Now we can look at free agency for a few different things. I mean, obviously the free agency market this offseason to me isn't that enticing. Um, obviously we're not talking about Kevin Durant. We're not talking about any of those guys. But we need to address our backup big. And if that means that we got to bring Bismack Biyombo back, then I'm down to do it, right? If that means we got to bring Chris Paul back so he can be like our third string point guard and transition into being a coach on our staff or something like that, love it, love it. Getting minutes in front of Blake Wesley on an evaluation year on the last year of his rookie deal, I'm not okay with that. So I love Chris Paul, and obviously he's been amazing this year, but that's that. So I hope that gives us a little bit of insight into what the Spurs need to do this offseason and how they can approach this roster. That's just some of my initial thoughts. I know it's early, so we'll see how everything plays out. Again, guys, this episode has been brought to you by the Trejo Mortgage Team. If you're in Texas, if you're looking to own your first home, or if you're a real estate investor and you're looking to invest in real estate and you need someone to talk to you about how to do that, or if you need me to walk you step by step to purchase that first home for you and your family, the Trejo Mortgage Team, my wife and I, Alma Trejo, would be happy to help you. Go Spurs, go.